Good morning. Let's do some solutions to the classwork from before. Well, I say classwork, but we actually weren't in class for it, most of us. Okay, so we had this main menu item, and this is the code that I gave you where we're running a constructor, which will make a new menu item object. And the job of the constructor is to give the object's variables their starting values. So here we're creating an object that's going to have values burrito, 450, and 500, and taco, and 325, and 300, and so on. And then we're going to take each object and run its view method. And the view method is supposed to display all of the information about that object. So this is the class that runs the object code, but we actually have to define the object itself. So let's do that. The object's called menu item. So when you go to new Java class, you need to name your class the same name that you want your data type to be, the same name that you want your constructor to be, so menu item. All right, here it is. I'm going to do that split screen thing again. So I'm going to right click and say split vertically. Except, what do I want? I want to close out all this other stuff. I like my object definition to be on the right and my main class to be on the left. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. So in the instructions for the problem, it says, give your menu item object 3 variables, a name, a price, and a number of calories. So I'm going to say string name double price int calories. And you can name your variables whatever you want, that's fine. These data types are probably the best data types for the values that they're supposed to hold. Okay, so next it says add a constructor like in the video. All right, so if this is my constructor, so first of all, a constructor looks like a method, except it's got no void. It's got no return type of any kind. And its name has to match the name of your class. So menu item has to match menu item. Okay, so because it's a command, because it's a method, I need opening and closing parentheses. And now I see that my constructor is supposed to take 3 values as input. I can tell 3 because I see 3 values between the commas, between the parentheses inside the constructor here where I run it. So it's like this is showing me how I want my command to work. Here I'm going to define my command in a way that will allow that to happen. So I see the first thing here is a string, and the second thing is a double. So inside the parentheses, first I'm going to make a string variable to hold that string. Then I'm going to make a double variable to hold that double. The last number looks like it's an int, so I'm going to create an int variable to hold the int. Let me make this side a little bit larger so you can see it. So now I've defined a command called menu item. That's the constructor. It takes 3 inputs. It's going to have a string and a price and a number of calories. And the value for n and p and c, the values for these variables, automatically are assigned from wherever you run the constructor. So on this line 4, n is going to be burrito, and p is going to be 450, and c is going to be 500. But then on the next line, I run the constructor again, and this time, the n variable here is going to have a different value. So each time you run the constructor, all 3 values get copied inside these variables. Okay, but these variables here are just temporary. They stop existing as soon as this command is done running. So what I really want to do is I want to take the value inside of n and save it as my object's permanent variable, because these are my real object variables up here. So I'm going to say, let's say this.name equals n. So the name variable for this object is going to get assigned the n value. This.price equals p, and this.calories equals c. Okay, so we've got a constructor. And you'll notice that now there's no compile time errors here on the left. Let's make a view method. So I'm noticing that the view method takes no input. So I'll just say public void view, and then opening and closing parentheses with nothing inside the opening and closing parentheses. And then between the curly braces go the lines of Java that I want to describe what does a view actually do. And in the problem instructions, I said that a view should just display all the variables. So I'm just going to print the name, and I'm going to print the price. Whoa. Price, and I'm going to print the number of calories. This is not a particularly nice way of printing them. I just want to show you that this works, and then we can make it nicer. Okay, so which code do I run? I run this side that actually has the main method. This is a definition for an object. You'll notice that there isn't any main method to run. Instead, each of these commands are run from an object inside a main method over here. So let's run it. All right, so you see it says, welcome to my restaurant. What can I get for you today? Please take a moment to view my menu. But then the menu doesn't look very nice. It just says burrito, 4.5, 500, taco, like this. But that's these view methods running. So instead of displaying each thing on a line by itself, let's do this. I'm going to use a print statement, so it won't go to a new line. So I'm going to say name, and then a couple of spaces, and then maybe a $sign for the price. Is that what I want? Well, we'll see if we like it in a minute. And then a couple spaces, and then some number of calories. So what this should look like now is it should print name, and then the name, and then some spaces and a $sign, and then the price, and then some more spaces, and a number of calories, and then the word calories. Let's run it one more time. Oh, except I want this last one to be print line so that it actually does end the line. Let's do it again. That looks a lot better. So name burrito, taco, quesadilla. It might be nicer if these line up, but I don't really care about that. All right, so that was problem number 1. Problem number 2 already had a solution video for you to follow. So let's look at problem number 3. Problem number 3 was essentially to replace what's inside setup right now with an actual constructor that assigns the starting values. So right now in setup, we run this default constructor that takes no input. So it'll just make new copies of x, y, and x speed and y speed. But then we have to set each one on a line by itself manually. So instead of this, what I want to be able to do is take this 300 and 300 and make them inputs to the constructor, and then the 2 and the 5. So I want to delete these and instead have it work that way. So let's make the constructor. Here inside the ball class, same thing, public, nothing, ball. And then inside the parenthesis, I need to define variables that can hold these 4 numbers. So let's make an int x, an int y, an int xs for x speed, and an int ys for y speed. And now what I want to do is I want to take that input variable and save it here. Because when I run the ball constructor here, I'm going to get 300 getting assigned to x. Oh, by the way, notice over here, do you see how it has a little x colon? So IntelliJ knows that the first number here is going to get saved inside this variable x. Look at what happens if I change the variable name. If I change it to xcord here, now the ball constructor is telling you that your xcord is going to end up being 300. But this value only gets assigned to this variable. We need to take this variable and save it as the actual ball variables up here. So I'm going to say this.x equals xcord. I'm going to call this one ycord for coordinate. So this.y equals ycord, and then this.xspeed equals xs, this.yspeed equals ys. In case you didn't know, I'm using tab completion, so I'm typing th tab dot, and then like ys tab. So I'm not typing full words. I'm typing the first couple of letters and then hitting the tab key, which is a much faster way to type. Okay, so I think that's done it. So now all I have to do is copy these same starting values here. So I've got 300, 300, and then negative 2, 10. And now I can delete these here. All right, so that's a lot nicer. Okay, so last problem. Let's do the A-level problem. It says you'll use the same patterns you've seen so far to give ball objects a size and add commands that will let the user make their on-screen objects larger and smaller. So we're going to give each ball a diameter variable. So here we've got x, y, x speed, y speed. Let's give it a diameter. So then problem part B says adjust your constructor so that it assigns a starting value. So I need to be able to say this dot diameter equals something, d. But the problem is, where's this number going to come from? So I need to take one more input. So I'm going to say int d as the last variable in my list. So now whoever runs the ball constructor is going to need to give me one last number, and then that number d is going to get saved inside diameter. Okay, so now you'll see there's errors here. And the error is because I'm only giving the constructor 4 numbers, but now it's expecting 5. So let's make the diameter, this one be 30, and let's make this one be 60 so that we can see that there's going to be a difference. Okay, change your ball main class so that each ball you construct has a different diameter. Okay, I just did that. So add 2 new commands to the ball class, grow and shrink. So let's, maybe I'll do that down here. So public void grow. And if I want the ball to get larger, I just need to increase the diameter. So I'll say diameter equals diameter plus 3. So that means take the current diameter, add 3, save it as the new diameter. Let's do shrink. Same thing, except I'm going to say minus 3. But then it says use an if statement to prevent the diameter from becoming smaller than 1. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to let the diameter get as small as it needs to here, but then I'm going to check to see if it's too small. So if diameter is less than 1, then I'm going to set the diameter back to be equal to 1. So it's like, let's imagine the diameter was equal to 1, and I subtract 3. Now the diameter should be negative 2, but then I say, is the diameter smaller than 1? Yeah, it's negative 2 right now. Okay, let's set it back to be 1 again. So that's a way of preventing your variable from taking the wrong value. All right, so we've got grow and shrink. So now in ball main, let's make it so that when the user hits the Q button, so you know what? The key thing here is we've got to actually change the ellipse statements. I don't know why that's not in this list here, but hopefully it occurred to you. So right now 6060 is the size that we're displaying the ball at. But instead of 6060, I think we want to do b.diameter, b.diameter. And then over here, this is for b2. We'll say b2.diameter and b2.diameter. All right. So last part, here I am inside draw. I've got a if the key is being pressed, then let's check what key it is and do something. So let's add a new if statement. So if the key equals Q, what did I want Q to do? Make all objects get bigger. So in that case, I'll say b.grow and b2.grow. So I'll run the grow command on both objects if we hit the Q key. And then if key equals W, b.shrink and b2.shrink. All right, I think that'll do it. Let's run it and see. Okay, so I'm pressing the Q button, and they're definitely larger, and then I'm pressing the W button, and they're getting smaller, but you can still see them there. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should have made it so that they can be larger than size 1. Anyway, they were still there. All right, cool. I hope that this was helpful.